Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa says his administration has worked hard to reduce the level of poverty in the state through numerous empowerment and job creation programs. The governor said the state government was committed to giving Deltans a good standard of living owing to their status as citizens of an oil-producing state. In the meantime, with the Okowa administration winding down after 8 years of governance, there are already speculations regarding who might succeed him at Government House Asaba as the chief executive of Delta State. And well, joining us now to speak on the four mentioned issues in job creation and his succession plan in Delta State is the State Commissioner for Information, Charles Aniagwu. Welcome to the program. It's good to have you with us. Let's start with the issue of job creation in Delta State. Yes. How is the government faring on that? And can you give us specifics where you're focusing on and why?
Well, thank you very much. You recall that in 2015, ahead of the 2015 general elections, the governor went around the 25 local government areas and made it very clear that a major policy plank of his administration would be the issue of strategic wealth creation. And he reasoned that for him to be able to do that, that he's going to ensure that a number of youths are taken off the streets. But realizing that over the years, government tend to bring in a whole number of persons into the civil service, even when vacancy doesn't exist, and that has not helped in terms of improvement in either the per capita income of the people of the state or in terms of improving their standard of living. He decided to take a different line. And that was why he introduced a whole number of programs aimed at empowering our people and not just training them, but equipping them to become entrepreneurs in their own right. A whole lot of programs was actually brought on board. Were brought on board rather. We have programs that where the youth quit in terms of different skills. We also have programs where youths are allowed to go into some form of agricultural production in line with the policies that he actually canvassed at the head of that election. And then we have upscaled that processes to also include the attempt to take care of the girl child, because in the course of time we realized that they were not being carried along as much as the governor desired. And so a program such as the JEST program was also introduced. We also have a program that targets youths in the rural areas called RISA, that's a Rural Youth Acquisition Scheme. That particular program enables us to take care of a number of youths in the rural communities who may not have had the privilege of a very high level of formal education, but they are in the rural areas. They may have learned one trade or the other, but do not have the necessary business training or funds to kickstart the business. We also have programs where we also take care of even widows, as well as other women who we believe that once they are involved in one business or the other, they too afford to help their homes. So all these different programs were brought on board to enable us provide job opportunities, because immediately there was no way we are going to just bring in a lot of private sector players to come in and begin to mop up the unemployed. And so we needed to create these entrepreneurs so that in the course of time, they too are able to help to mop up the unemployed. And luckily, by the grace of God, we have been able to strike the bull's eye, because a number of these persons that were trained have also been able to train other persons, even as they have also employed a number of persons to engage in the same businesses that they were trained for by the government. And so we are happy that we took that route. And going forward ahead of winding down in 2023, the governor is upscaling the processes. Not long ago, we saw the graduation of 900 persons who were involved in the guest program. And some few weeks from now, we will also be graduating another 810 that were trained, and we are ready to equip them in the RISA program. And just a day before yesterday, while we were in their school, the Minister of the Directorate of Humanitarian Services also brought up a program which is also targeting a number of vulnerable members of the society. We have asked the commissioner to go and fine-tune the processes so that at the end of the day, we are not going to be giving money to persons who will end up either deciding to sell off their starter packs or just spend the money for reasons other than what we intend to do as a government. And so we are happy that a number of persons have been taken off the streets. The question is, have we gotten to where we want to be? No, but we have really left the shore, and we are sailing very, very smoothly.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to speed on that. And I'm appreciative of the fact that some of these programs are actually focusing on women, empowering women, and also uplifting the girl child. But it's interesting that some programs like the Youth Entrepreneurship Program and the Girl Entrepreneurship Skills Training Program were launched the same year when the pandemic set in. So I'd like to ask how the pandemic has affected your efforts, and also if you could bring us up to speed on the figures for unemployment, because according to Statista, as at the start of 2021, it showed that the unemployment rate for Delta State stood at 31.14%. If you're going by the Nigerian methodology, and if you want to go by the international standards, it stands at 24.01. So what is the figure at the moment, and how did COVID hamper your efforts?
Well, starting from the issue of the figures, I cannot immediately tell you this is the exact number, but what I do know is that we have been able to drastically reduce what it was when we came in. And the number of persons who have taken off well over 10,000 directly, and of course, much more number of that remotely. And so you can see we are bringing down the numbers in terms of percentages. But in terms of the COVID, in 2020, when the COVID struck, of course, there was that initial shock, not only in Nigeria, but across the world. And not long after that, we sat back as an administration in Delta and examined its effect. And that we saw that there was no need for us to fold our hands and begin to cry about the COVID, because we were not in a better position to ask COVID to go, even if we took a whole lot of steps aimed at mitigating the effects of COVID. But what we did was to ensure that we also bring in more programs. It was also in the course of that we introduced the JEST program you talked about. It was also in the course of that period that the RISER program was also upscaled in terms of the funds that were deploying to that particular policy of the administration. Why did we do that? We saw that COVID affected a whole lot of persons. And because of that, after we had set them up, we also didn't wait for the federal government to fine-tune the CARES program. We started with the Delta CARES program, so that even before the federal government could make much impact along that line in the direction of the World Bank, we as an administration took census of a number of our persons whose businesses were affected on account of the ravaging effect of the COVID. And then we gave them funds through a microcredit scheme in line with whatever businesses they are doing, and then we rate it, and then whatever you are giving, some got as much as over 700,000, some 150, depending on the kind of businesses you are into. If you are into the sale, maybe you sell things like crayfish and all that, you don't expect that we're going to give you 500,000, because that is not what you need. You need what you can afford to manage and how your business can come back to life. But if you are into a much bigger business, we give them much bigger funds. The Delta CARES program is directly targeted at bringing people out of the effect of the pandemic. And we are comfortable that it's going on smoothly. As an ESCO, we have also approved another round for us to see how we can reach out to our people, even as we still await the different intervention from the federal government in line with some of the dictates of the World Bank. And that we are doing seriously. But to also ensure that these businesses that we have helped our people to set up survive, we have a monitoring team. This monitoring team goes around checking whether indeed there are challenges confronting these persons who have been trained, because you know businesses come with a whole lot of challenges. That you have trained somebody for a period of 6 months and expose him to certain business model may not directly mean that he or she have gotten all he or she needs. There could be some intervening variables, such as a family influence, where the family may want him to be carrying him or her to carry the load that is much bigger than his or her business. Through these processes of monitoring and mentoring, we're able to also ensure that we get these brothers and sisters that have been trained to understand the processes of business and how they can continue to grow these businesses, because the businesses need to grow for them to continue to intervene in the challenges that may confront their families. Otherwise, if you leave them, such challenges may just come up and wipe up their funds, and then they go back to square one. And we don't want that to happen. But so far, we are quite convinced that a whole lot, more than 70% achievement has been recorded, and we are hopeful that going forward, a number of these entrepreneurs will also help us to further mop up the unemployment level in the state.
All right, interesting perspective on job creation in Delta State. Now, Mr. Aniagwu, let's talk a little bit about politics. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa will have completed 2 terms in office shortly. Can you give us a perspective on succession plans? And will the question of zoning coming up, or rather, will it come up regarding the multi-ethnic dimension of Delta State?
Well, if you have followed the politics of Delta since 1999, you will understand that the leaders and the many different groups in the state usually have one way or the other of taking care of one another. And that is also what is going to happen this time around. And that's what's happening. Individuals who possibly want the governor because of his sterling performance to try to have overbearing influence on how he's going to run. The governor is consulting. He's carrying everybody along, ensuring that at the end of the day, we'll have a much more peaceful state. We are very much interested in sustaining the peace that exists today, much as we're also interested in sustaining the development that we have witnessed in the last 7 years. A whole number of things have happened. If you are used to Delta State, by the time you visit now, you see that so many things have happened. And we hope that going forward, whoever is going to emerge as the next governor will carry on with this development so that at the end of the day, we'll further reduce the level of unemployment and keep it level that is far lower than the national average, and at the same time ensure that businesses thrive. We have been able to increase the ease of doing business in Delta on account of our intervention in terms of infrastructure development, and then on terms of the other areas where we have intervened and have brought in a whole number of persons to come and do business in our state. That has helped us to mop up a number of the unemployed. And so going forward, we will engage in politics that will sustain this development. Today, Delta State ranks very high in terms of peace and harmony. And that peace and harmony has kept us in the news for the better reasons, rather than what you used to hear about pipeline vandalism and other form of disruptions in the state. And that we're also ready to sustain. The governor has already advised those who are interested in contesting the election in 2023 to first try as much as possible to realize that whoever they are contesting against is also their brother or sister, and they are all Deltans. And that each and every one of them do look forward to adding value to the state, and that for you to add value, you don't need to engage in utterances that is capable of causing some form of fear or disturbing the peace that we have at the moment. So the leaders are talking, the different contestants are taking a shot at it, and we are hopeful that at the end of the day, the better person will emerge at a primary that will be held by the People's Democratic Party. I mention People's Democratic Party because this is a party that who's in Delta. There are other political parties, but they do not have enough ground to begin to take a shot at the #1 seat. Perhaps they could have some form of showing at the local level, but usually not very pronounced. But in the case of the PDP, the people of Delta North, where the governor is from at the moment, have shown a whole lot of respect to the governor and said, sir, since you are from here, we will not take a shot at the #1 seat in the state. And that is why at the moment, none of the persons in the PDP from Delta North has bothered to pick the form. They are saying they will cooperate with their brother, that's the governor, to ensure that he finishes strong. And that at the end of the day, those that have the capacity to possibly carry on with the policies that have brought the peace and the development would be supported. And that is ongoing. So it's not a question of stopping one group and asking the other to proceed. It has always been the case that everybody is allowed to at least take a shot at the #1 seat. In 1999, all the 3 senatorial districts contested. In 2003, they were candidates from the 3 senatorial districts. In 2006 up to 2007, the same thing happened. In 2011, the 3 senatorial districts contested. In 2015, the same thing happened. Even in 2019, when the governor was returning, persons from the central senatorial districts also contested that election with the governor. But this time, the governor said, no, it's good. He pleaded with his people, and because of the respect they have from Delta North, none of the persons in the PDP from Delta North is rising to want to take a shot. So at the moment, the contest is largely between the people from Delta South and Delta Central.
Well, it does sound like you're keeping your options open, which is what it's supposed to be anyway. And some of the statements that the governor has made is that he doesn't plan on slowing down until his tenure is complete. But are there any favorites at this time regarding who the governor might think, any favorites in terms of who he might deem capable of passing the mantle?
The governor has been the father of all. You know the implication of, at the moment, coming out to say, this is my favorite. When that happens, the others who are also, if you like, his children in the party, may not take it very lightly. And so the governor is encouraging everybody to go and talk to the delegates, to go and interact with those who have the power to vote. You do know that even in that election, that the governor will also cast his vote. And if somebody is going to cast his vote, he's not going to vote for two persons because he has only one vote. And if he has only one vote, it means that that vote will go to one person. And you may want to say that that person that his vote will go to is the person that he prefers. And that is in line with democratic norms. And so if at the end of the day, the governor says, I'm going to vote for this person, of course, you do know he's not going to make it public because we still use the secret voting, the ballot system. And so there are individuals who may want to, because of the pedigree of the governor in the state, be waiting for him to say, raise their hand and say, you are my candidate. I don't think that is going to happen, particularly as where we are now. The leaders may come together, and then when they reason and they decide that the direction is good, they will head in that direction. But you do know the governor will certainly have a choice at the end of the day because that's what democracy allows. Even when you go to a court, like I said the last time I appeared on your program, sometimes the judges have the certain views, which means judges even themselves are allowed to have a choice. By the time somebody rules in favor, another person rules against, in the same case, it's a question of choice, which means you choose to look at the other matters differently, while the others who may be those who have the lead judgment may also look the other way. But at the end of the day, the governor will certainly have somebody who will vote for. But at the moment, the governor believes that everybody should go to the field, talk to the delegates, and that the delegates are very much free to also interact with these persons who are contesting this election. He's very much interested in the United Party, United States, a state that the development that we're witnessing at the moment is sustained. That is his priority. And he's also very much concerned about the issue of governance. You recall he has made it clear that up to the 28th of May 2023, that he will continue to commission projects. And for him to do that, it means that he has to also concentrate, even as he gives some time off his schedule to play in politics. But right now, he's very much concerned about governance, which is why we are still approving a whole lot of projects and ensuring that those projects kick off in earnest.
Interesting, you should mention the issue of unity in Delta State. And earlier on, you also talked about the lack of prominence of the opposition in elected positions. But I'd like to ask you, how has the government's relationship with the opposition been in moving the state forward, irrespective of party affiliation?
Well, what you know is that there are some persons in the opposition whose main agenda is also to see that development happens. And so since the governor has led an administration that is pursuing this development, so to a very large extent, their own aspirations have been addressed. But because they belong to opposition party, once in a while you may hear their voice heading in another direction. But the reason why they have not found it is to be very ferocious in the state is because a number of the issues that would have given them that strength are being addressed by the administration, i.e. the issue of creating jobs for the youths, the issue of uniting the different segments of our society, the issue of carrying the traditional institution along, the issue of ensuring that women are brought on board in terms of the governance and decision-making in the state, and a whole lot of issues that the administration has tackled. Today, as we speak, even as close as the primaries and the general election is, the opposition is finding it very difficult to take on the administration on the basis of performance because they will know that particular argument will fall flat. The people you are talking to, they live in Delta. They have seen what the governor is doing across the 3 senatorial districts, whether in the area of roads. And like I said, the programs we have aimed at ensuring that we provide jobs for our people is done on the basis of wards. We have 270 political wards, federal wards in the state. And when we engage in these programs, we ensure that every ward is represented. For instance, in the case of the Rural Youth Acquisition Scheme Program, we take 3 persons per ward, and that gives you 810 persons from the 270 wards in the state. And so, one way or the other, you must know somebody that has been touched by the administration. Almost every ward out of these 270 have been touched in terms of programs and projects. It's either we have had cause to renovate or reconstruct schools in any of these wards, or that we have built roads, or that we have intervened in terms of the primary healthcare centers in these. So you could always see that there's something the administration have done in any of the wards. And so when you are talking to people and you want to head in that direction, they will be the one to challenge you. We don't even need, as a government, to be the one challenging you, because they know that you are lying. That is the greatest challenge the opposition have now at the moment. But we could also see, because they are not able to take us on with respect to development and then the execution of projects, we could see that they are trying to throw in some other form of jabs, which of course is not hitting anybody, particularly in our administration, on account of determination to concentrate on the issues we are going to carry on. There are those who are coming up with all sort of allegations as to whether we who is coming out to contest or who is not contesting, and they are not looking at the issue of eligibility. They are not looking at the issue of the law. They bring in a whole lot of sentiment as to whether the person is far away or very close to the governor. But it's expected at this time. You do know that it's like a game of football where the season is over and then you have a transfer window open. So different persons who want to find a reason why they want to leave their club, or why they want to either accuse their coach, or some may even progress to even accusing the referee. So it's expected at a time like this. We don't begrudge any person. We are happy that all of us, both those in the opposition and those of us in the ruling party in the state, have come to realize that, first of all, we're all Deltans. The governor have also extended hands of fellowship and have continued to do that. There are persons even in the opposition that were even brought into the administration. And when we do things, when we engage in empowerment programs, we don't do it on the basis of party. We believe that the monies we are spending belongs to everybody in Delta. And so we don't construct roads that are politically motivated. If we are constructing road to a community, it doesn't matter whether the political leader in that community is in the opposition party. What is important is that our people are going to use that road. If we are constructing or if we are trying to establish a borehole, a water scheme in a community, we care less whether the person who holds sway in that environment is attacking the government on the strength of, from the point of the opposition. We look at it from the point that the people who consume the water, who drink the water and make use of it, are also Deltans, and that the monies we are deploying to provide that facility belongs to also that person who is in the opposition. And so we are actually cool with our brothers and sisters who are in the opposition. We don't begrudge them because it's allowed. Sometimes it makes for the vibrancy in a democratic setting. And you can check it out. Delta is one of the most peaceful in terms of whether politics or even the social fabrics that bind us together. And the governor is very much determined to leave it at that, which is why he's advising even those in the PDP that are trying to take a shot at the different position ahead of 2023 to please moderate their languages, to realize that whoever you are contesting against is also desirous of adding value. And if that is a common denominator, there is no need to fight.
Interesting perspective, Commissioner. Now, finally, it's one thing to invest in people, but what have their response been so far on government performance in the past 8 years or thereabout? Briefly, please.
Well, in the past 7 years, we have enjoyed more than enough, if anything like that, support and cooperation from our people. They, from day one, have shown so much trust in the governor. The governor's chieftaincy title is Ekweme. That is a man who does what he says. And he has lived up to that name. That once he makes a promise, he tries as much as possible to ensure that that promise is kept. And that is the reason why before he makes a promise, he examines the ability to bring that promise to fruition. And because the people have seen that in all the promises he has made, whether in the riverine communities or whether in the upland, that he has strived to keep to those promises, they too have shown a whole lot of cooperation. When you see our traditional rulers today, in spite of the fact that they belong to different ethnic groups and head different communities, they coexist even amongst themselves as brothers. You no longer see anybody emphasizing that ethnic fabric. What they now look at is a delta that works together. And we are hoping that going forward, this harmony that exists will continue because it has helped us a lot. The cooperation from our people has made it possible for us to have waste much time trying to settle people. We now have more time to concentrate on building of infrastructure. There were a whole lot of disagreements among different communities in the past. Those communities, because of the trust they have for the administration, have keyed in to the administration's effort at uniting them. A very good example is what was happening between the people in Ijo and Obuijo and Alaja before we came in. It was a very, very serious disagreement on account of boundary between these two communities. But because of the trust they have in the governor, they keyed into the process of peace. Today, they not only coexist, they play football together. If you see them, you think that it's just one community. And that is replete across the 25 local government areas, where we have been able to unite our people and let them understand that piece of land or boundary cannot be what will just set them apart. Not just about 2 days ago, we also intervened by way of considering the white paper on the committee that was set up to look at crisis between some persons in Isoko land, two different communities that have been at each other's throat before now. But today, you hardly hear of such. And so we are comfortable and believe that those who are coming after us will continue to sustain that so that they too can keep the development trajectory that we have witnessed in the last 7 years. And so in all, we appreciate our people, the youths, the women, the traditional institution, and indeed the political class for the support they have given to us. Even those in the opposition, we also commend them.
We certainly appreciate you joining us on Newsday, Delta State Commissioner for Information, Mr. Charles Aniagwu. Thank you so much.